Chris Landry, LandryFootball.com. Welcome into the game here in T-Town. I hope you're doing well.
Doing good. It's a little hot down in South Louisiana, but it's hot everywhere, I guess. It's football season is not that far away, though, despite the summer heat.
Yeah, but could you imagine all those players out there running those 110s and going through the conditioning under Scott Cochran, which is somebody that you know very well?
Well, I got to tell you, something that I do a lot of during the summer is I speak at a lot of coaching clinics, college coaching clinics and high school coaching clinics and whatnot. I tell you what really concerns me, and it's on my mind with this heat. It's not at college programs. It's not in the NFL where there's trainers and doctors available, but it's a real problem at the high school level where they don't have the resources to have as many folks and to monitor these players. And we have it every summer, every year as the climate adjusts. I can remember it being a little bit cooler growing up in September than it is now. Now I think September is the second hottest month for most of us down south. But I worry about a lot of the summer practices, the summer workouts, and particularly the summer form of two-a-days in high school where kids are not monitored as well. That's a real concern of mine. It is very difficult. It is something that you got to be careful about and hydrate properly and monitor guys, but it's a necessary part of it, of getting ready for the season.
Chris, I want to spend a little time picking your brain. There was the big Elite 11 training camp out in California, and quarterbacks that throw against air. Do you put a lot of stock into some of these camps? And I know you're going to have one there in your state, the Manning Passing Academy coming up in a couple of weeks. I mean, do you put a lot of stock in the way these guys perform at those particular camps?
Well, you can get a lot of things out of it, but not, some of the things. Well, this guy threw well and all that. That's you expect a guy to throw well there, but there are things you can get out of those camps if you're around. I go to the Manning camp, usually speak there at least once during the camp, and it is my parents. My mom was from not far from that area, a little town just outside of Thibodaux. And so I go there every summer, and what is good about it is you get to really see how a young man, handles himself, how he adjusts. But throwing on air is not what I'm looking for, and nor what I'm getting out of it. But you can see certain things in terms of ball velocity, some technique. One thing that you can see is you can see some basic technique and footwork. Now, then what you do is you go to the tape, and is he performing those technique under pressure is what you're looking for. But, yes, you can get some things out of it. It's just not what people say, well, he's got a gun for an arm, and he completed this many passes, and just like these pro day workouts prior to the draft. Well, he only had one ball dropped at the ground. None of that matters, but the whole process and the technique is very, very useful.
Yeah, we're talking right now to Chris Landry, LandryFootball.com, and you were breaking down the best quarterback units in all of college football. This one in Tuscaloosa has got to be mighty, mighty high on your list.
Yeah, it is, and it is for now as long as the two guys are there. I think that, the one thing that's difficult is to find guys that have to, because there are a lot of these programs recruit really good ones, but holding on to them. I think this one is really good. I think Clemson's is really good, even with losing who they have. I think Penn State's is really good. West Virginia's is really good. Washington is really good. But I definitely when I did it, I looked at the unit as a whole and the depth, not just the starter. But the starter certainly has a lot to do with it. But, yes, it's an absolutely it's a good group. And, in anticipation of a pretty good year by potentially both of them. Certainly, seeing one quarter and a performance in a big time arena like the national championship game showed a lot of Tua. But you want to see a little bit more of them. And a lot of these units we're talking about, you've got in most cases a proven veteran and a guy who has some mobility that hasn't proven himself. In Alabama's case, you've got a guy that has kind of proven himself to be a good quarterback for them in Jalen Hurts, and Tua, who's played some, leading up to the championship game last year, and then performed very well. And not many can say that they have had two quarterbacks played at that high of a level in that type of game, and that's why I think that they would have to be near the top.
All right. In your experience with Nick Saban, because we've been talking about this a lot, you think there's any way he'll do a two-quarterback system? Do you see him being that type of guy, that type of style?
No, I don't. I think it's going to be he's not going to do anything to appease a player. He's going to do what's best for the team. And I think what's best for the team in most cases, and when you're using two quarterbacks, you're either trying to appease someone, which he's not going to do, or if you're ineffective, then that's when I think you can see a second quarterback. But at that point, when you normally see two on a regular basis, is you have two that are not very productive. And you're trying to milk out, this guy may give you a good game here, good game there, but I do not see that scenario playing out. I do see a scenario where, for example, Tua wins the job, he doesn't protect the football, and he puts the ball in harm's way. I could absolutely see Jalen Hurts coming in and taking over. Does that mean that Tua would sit, forever, rest of the season? Not necessarily, but I can tell you that the guy that leads this team the best, that is the guy that can protect the football and make good decisions, and also make some plays in the passing game consistently, is the one that's going to get that job, and is the one that's going to hold on to that job. And his approach is going to be getting that other guy ready, because you're one play away from having to play him if an injury occurs, and then you're dealing with, in most situations, where now you're down to one quarterback that you hope nothing happens to him, or then your season is pretty much derailed.
And just knowing Nick Saban, we said it earlier, I don't think we'll know anything probably the week of Alabama, Louisville. I don't think we'll know anything any sooner, because Nick Saban's going to lead this thing right up until game day.
Sure, and first of all, it's not like, I think people have of an attitude. He knows exactly what he's going to do. He's just not going to tell anybody. No, that's really not true. I mean, does he? I can tell you that he sees that Tua has more ability as a passer, but but fans see that. But what fans don't get, and maybe media doesn't get, is can he consistently make the right decisions? And we've talked about this before. He made big plays in that championship game. He also made some plays that could have cost them the game. Now, they don't win the game without him, but then he also made some crucial mistakes that fortunately didn't cost them from Alabama's standpoint. So what he wants, he knows what these guys can do, but he's got to see them do it more consistently under pressure. He knows what Jalen Hurts can do. He knows that they can win with Jalen Hurts. He knows how important he is as a runner, the dimension that he adds there. And with Tua, he potentially gives them more in the passing game. And I say potentially because he absolutely can throw the football better and move the football to all parts of the field better. But he also is more prone to make mistakes, bad reads, force the football. That's what they've got to get out of him, and that you're going to have to make smart decisions, and you're going to have to make big plays when they're there. But this is not going to be a type of offense that's going to be, let's attack downfield, let's be aggressive with the passing game, because that is, quite frankly, the equalizer to your opponent. You start putting the ball on the ground, you start throwing picks, you've got incompletions, and all of a sudden you take a lesser opponent and you put them in the game, and then a season which clearly looks like they maybe are not only better, but in some cases, most cases, significantly better than their opponents. All of a sudden you put a game or two in peril that shouldn't be there. So that's going to be the key, and he wants to see that, and I think he's going to play that out through the entire fall. And the guy that's going to get the ball is the guy that he's most comfortable with, and I think the other guy is going to be told, you better be ready to go, because this is what we expect, and if we're not getting it, we're going to turn to you.
When you look at Jalen Hurts, Is it fair, though, that maybe he went a little bit too conservative at times because he was so hesitant of throwing the football? I mean, I see that as one of his big problems is maybe taking a little bit of chances. Is that a fair way to
Well, I think he doesn't take the chances because he's not as good of a passer. See, that's the issue with him. He's got more limitations as a passer than Tua does. Tua's a better passer. So you're going to be a little bit more reluctant, and that's been coached into him, that this is what we want you to do. That's by design. It's not, everyone says, well, you don't see it. Well, they see it. They know. That's why you do it. That's why you have, certain pitchers throw certain pitches, and that's what you call, and that's what you want. In this case, this is a guy that can throw it off play action, but you don't want him throwing it into small windows. You want to throw it against the right coverage. If he gets some man coverage where you can have, you can throw the ball up and let your receiver go up and get it, that's fine. But you don't want him to throw the curls, the comebacks, the deep ends that have a very small window because he's not as good of a passer. The ball doesn't come out on time as well, and it's not released with the type of accuracy that needs to be, and ball placement needs to be. So, could you unleash him a little bit more in certain circumstances? Sure you could. But again, I think they know enough to know that there's certain type of passes that he's going to be effective at, and there's going to be certain type of things that Tua can do that's a little bit different, and some things that he can't do as well as Jalen. That's just part of what you do. That's no different than a corner that is a little better in certain trail technique or press man technique. You're going to play to those strengths. You're not going to put him in disadvantageous situations. You don't want a running back that's a downhill power back dancing around trying to bounce it outside. You want it to hit downhill. You don't want a guard that is a great road grading run blocker. You don't want to be pulling that guy when he's not real athletic. On the other hand, the athletic guy, you want to pull a lot. You want to get out on front. So quarterbacks are no different. There's different skill sets that each have, and you want to play to them.
We're talking to Chris Landry, LandryFootball.com. Chris, let's go to Georgia here for just a couple of minutes. They've got 8 starters returning on the offense, but really want to focus in on this quarterback conversation there. You think Alabama's in 3 scholarship quarterbacks and a couple of walk-ons. Matter of fact, they've added a late guy here. But you look at Georgia with only 2 scholarship quarterbacks on that roster. They have to manage that the right way, too.
Yeah, they're in the same situation Alabama's in. I mean, they lose one of these guys, they're down to 1. And that's the variable that I think could be concerning for them, as they are clearly the favorite in the East. And they've got a quarterback that is, I think, wise beyond his years, good decision maker, accurate. I think grew up a lot. And then they've got in Justin Fields a really good athletic quarterback that can make plays. And I think that, I've been asked a lot too from the Georgia media is, how is Kirby going to play this out? And I think similarly, I think he's going to give the ball to one. I think it's, barring an upset or an injury that would change things, it's going to be Fromm. Then, could you see Fields play? I expect that you will, just like I expect that you're going to see 2 Alabama quarterbacks play. But in what role? I would expect that in mop-up duty, maybe situationally, maybe in you might have a little bit of a package in a game that without disrupting the flow of your offense and at the right down and distance and field position situation, I think you can see that with Justin Fields. It's a little bit different in that Fromm is the more experienced guy and he's the passer. In Alabama's case, the more experienced guy is the runner, like Fields is the younger guy at Georgia, and the less experienced guy is a little bit more of a passer. So it's similar but yet kind of reverse in terms of Georgia's quarterbacks in comparison to Alabama.
What is the biggest question, other than the conversation we just had about quarterbacks, that maybe you have about the Dogs going into 2018?
Well, I think that this offensive line is going to lose some key people. I think obviously the running back situation. When you lose guys like Chubb and Michelle, those are huge losses, but they're really talented. But I think Isaiah Wynn was an alpha dog player, and I think that they've got a couple of seniors in Galliard and Baker in the interior, but they're going to be playing probably with a freshman at tackle, Isaiah Wilson. Ben Cleveland and Andrew Thomas are young. How good can that offensive line be? Now, they were probably as well coached as any offensive line in the country, and I think that's going to be key. Also, can they make consistent plays in the passing game? Can McCole Hardeman, Riley Ridley, guys like that become consistent playmakers in the passing game for them? I like the running backs, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, they're not going to miss Chubb and Michelle. They are, but, with Swift and Holyfield, they are really loaded at running back. There's no doubt about it, and they're true freshmen. The Sinkwich kid's really good, and Tidwell's gone. They are loaded. Zamir White, the kid from North Carolina, they're loaded at running back. So I don't think there's a lot of holes or question marks, but when you lose guys like Chubb and Michelle and Wynn and Roquan Smith, who's a big-time, playmaker on defense, are going to have to replace him. But that's kind of where we're going to see where they are as a program. This is where all those recruiting rankings and all those players that they've recruited have to step up and produce, because that's what Alabama's done. And we're going to see if Georgia can just say, okay, Roquan Smith is gone, now we move on, and it's going to be Amani Rice or DeAndre Walker, whoever it is, it's going to step up and be the next great one.
Is there a team in the East other than Georgia you think can win that side of the division?
No, Georgia would have to lose it. South Carolina is good. South Carolina, would not shock me if they lined up, let's say, at home September 8th, and what a big game. Let's say I don't think it would be a complete shock on September 8th if South Carolina beats Georgia at home. I just don't think they're good enough to run the table, because I don't think they're deep enough to go through the schedule and get that done. I think Florida is talented. There's going to be an adjustment period, but Florida is definitely a team that if Georgia just has a disastrous season, somebody's got to win it. Florida certainly is in the best position overall talent-wise to do so, but I think this is Georgia. Georgia is as big a favorite in the East as Alabama is in the West, and would just have to collapse. And we've seen it happen before, Ryan, but I don't see anybody else winning the East. Georgia would have to lose it.
Chris, how important is it in the SEC West, that third game for LSU and Auburn, when those two guys, it seems like, they both have difficult games with Miami and Washington early, but that third game is the one that I'm kind of watching with Auburn and LSU.
Yeah, it could be the second loss for the loser. And if you look at the history of it, it's critical, because it doesn't pretty much in the modern era with Alabama in there and as powerful as they are, it really puts the loser behind the eight ball. It is the loser of this game is not out of it, but they are on thin ice, and they've got to basically run the table. And we know how difficult that is. And so it is very, very difficult, very, very challenging, and I think one of the more underrated rivalries in the SEC because of when they play it. In terms of early big games, it's not quite as big as the Tennessee-Florida game. Remember how big that was when those were the two best programs in the SEC? That was early in September, and the loser of that game was usually not out of it, but was likely going to have an uphill battle to find a way to win the East, and the winner was not only the favorite to win the East and the SEC, but a BCS favorite back then. I think that Auburn and LSU on a lower scale is kind of the same way. The loser is really behind the eight ball.
Chris, how long before Nick Saban takes advantage of this grad transfer rule? I know the NCAA will implement this rule, or is expected to implement the rule at next week in the legislative meetings that they're having there. But in case if they do implement this rule, how soon can Nick Saban take advantage of this?
Oh, immediately. He's in better position than anybody with 13, 14 analysts, this is what they'll do. Who'll have things in play. They already do it. They already look with the graduate transfers. They already look at players around the college football. I mean, help me, the kid from Bowling Green that played in the championship team a couple of years ago. There you go. That's a guy that they will scour and evaluate those kids, and they're going to do that even more. They're in better position than anybody to adjust to what any rule that they have. They've got more resources in which to be able to evaluate, and it's one of those things that I look at it two ways. I mean, these kids, in some cases, I think if you graduate, you have a right to move on. But a lot of these kids that want to transfer today, it's just a sign of the time. A lot of these kids are recruited and are, told how great they are, and they kind of think that they've arrived when they get there, and like that a job is promised them and that they don't have to earn it. And when they lose out, they think instead of fighting for it and trying to work hard, they want to go somewhere else. And that's just kind of the way it is now, unfortunately. But if that's going to be the rule and that's going to be the case, you're going to have to really make sure you're getting the right type of kid that maybe will want to stick it out. And then be prepared if they do leave to go and find somebody that is a little bit experienced, that can come and play at this level and help you. And we saw that with the kid that obviously was heading to Arkansas State. That's a really good young player, not someone that you would see Alabama go after heavily in the base recruiting cycle, but somebody that they like as a second tier, and it adds a guy to the quarterback room. It makes all the sense in the world. That's going to happen more and more now. In fact, it occupies a large majority of my notebook, my college notebook every day on LandryFootball.com is tracking the transfers and where they're visiting. It's like NFL free agency in college.
But do you see this as a good thing for the game?
No,
though?
I don't see it as a good thing. But I see it as something that's going to happen, and it's not going to change. Here's what I think. My experience as a college coach, kids get frustrated. They want to leave. Things not going well. They're having adversity for the first time. They want to leave, and then, at noon they want to leave, and at 6 o'clock at night they realize that, no, they're better off staying. They can't make up their mind. And I hate to put it this way, but I think that you almost have to protect kids from themselves, from their own decisions. And I don't think it's good. I think what is best for young men is to stick it out, to continue to develop, learn, grow. I think there are circumstances that are, to me, more understandable if a kid wants to leave. But in most cases, when they don't win out, it's a little bit of a turnoff for me that a kid doesn't want to compete and win the job, and the whole thing, and you get the parents involved. Johnny should play here. He's best guy. You get all that today, and that's the modern day world we live in. And so, no, I don't think it's good. I just know that it's here to stay.
Chris, can you take a couple of minutes here and talk about LandryFootball.com and the awesome coverage that you guys are offering there at LandryFootball.com?
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's the summertime, but we are working at football 365, 7 days a week, and we've got a summer savings special going on, and you get the roster analysis and team previews and the daily notebooks of all the college teams, all the NFL teams, what's going on the OTAs. Right now in college, breaking down the teams. And what I do is go back in post-draft and study all the spring practice tape and break down the rosters, go over the recruiting classes. And it's fun to go back 4 or 5 years and look at those classes and see how the players have developed. Maybe they've moved on and whatnot. That's when you really can evaluate a recruiting class, not, the week after the signing day. But so we evaluate everything on the college and NFL level, folks. If you like football, you'll love LandryFootball.com. It's like having your own scouting and personnel department for less than a magazine subscription. So our summer savings special we're doing right now, it's 50% off any subscription package. All you have to do is use the coupon code SUMMER. And if you do it today, you take advantage of the price hike that goes up to the regular price start of the football season. So you not only get all the previews and all the information leading up to the season, but you get all the seasonal breakdowns, you get all the recruiting breakdowns for next offseason, you get all the NFL free agency, the draft, everything for an entire year if you take advantage of that yearly discount.
And don't forget about the Tuesday and Thursday podcast available right there on LandryFootball.com. And if you want to go to the left-hand side of the screen, maybe something you've missed from your favorite NFL team or your favorite college team, click that, and you'll be able to carry that in anything that Chris has analyzed. You'll be able to find it there. Conveniently click Alabama, and you'll find out everything that involves the Crimson Tide. LandryFootball.com. Chris, as always, thank you again for your time. I'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Ryan.